Oh, let me tell you something. Busting makes me feel good.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Blockbusting, the podcast where we love to hate the movies. I'm your host, Jay Light. Joining me today, my guest, David Smalley.
Hey, man. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here today. You've got a controversial pick. We've been in a controversial pick. I'm not going to say rut because it doesn't feel like a rut. It feels good. But we've been on a real run of movies that people love generally, but one person hates them. And today, that movie is the first movie in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Fellowship of the Ring.
They all just turned it off.
Yeah.
Right then. They turned it off. They
Immediately.
hate us immediately. And this is why you picked me. Because we were talking one day here at the Comedy Store, and you were like, is there a movie you just really hate? I didn't even know that's what you did on your show at first. I knew you had a podcast. I don't know what it was about yet. And I was like, oh, Lord of the Rings. And I was like, oh, God, he's going to hate me. It's that thing that you don't want to tell people. You know what I mean? It's like I had to come out to you and tell you, like you're coming out to my parents, I don't like the Lord of the Rings. And you were like, what date are you available? Let's talk about it. So
Let's nail it down.
Apparently you hated it too.
So I wouldn't say I hated it, but it definitely didn't impress me. I have never made it through an entire Lord of the Rings movie awake. I am a person who am not really, as far as genre goes, high fantasy in this vein.
Yep.
Not really my speed.
Yep.
I never got into Game of Thrones. I watched all of the Lord of the Rings movies, but didn't really jive with them. And, I mean, even now, I look back on watching Lord of the Rings, and it doesn't feel like a sort of one of these, like, it doesn't feel like a monumental movie to me in the way that it does for, I think, a lot of people. What's your deal with it? What's your beef with Lord of the Rings?
Oh, my God. There's so many. It's ridiculous. I think I mean, I'm an actor, too. And I know that, you know, I mean, look, if they came back with some sort of reboot and I got offered to play a part, I'm not going to turn it down, right?
Of course not.
But I think that it's just so far-fetched. And I had to keep checking myself by going, because I'm not real big on fantasy either. You could say that, but then again, you do something like Avengers, right? Or some, like Spider-Man or something. And you
right,
go,
but that's a
sci-fi.
It's a different vein.
It is.
Superheroes.
It's still ridiculous. Oh, you got bit by a radioactive spider. Now you shoot webs out of your wrist. It's stupid in its premise, right?
Right.
But the way they tell the story, I think, makes you go, I'll buy it for now, right? I'll buy it for today. And then you sort of get you get drawn into that character and into the concept. And I think for me, Lord of the Rings just started off so silly that I could never buy in. I think that's what it's like. If you think about like Avengers, like say Spider-Man or Iron Man or even Hulk, it starts with a couple of guys talking like this or in a lab or people, you know what I mean? It's real life and it gets you sucked into real life. And then they go, here's a weird thing that happened one day that changed the course of everything. And you go, oh, I see how that could, you know. But for me, I mean, right at the top of the movie, right at the very beginning, whatever the tagline was it Fellowship of the Fap Goblin or whatever the hell it is? This ring is supposed to be so powerful that it controls everyone.
Uh-huh.
Yet, clearly, it has no effect on the dwarves or the elves. One thing right off the bat, I'm going, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that doesn't track.
It doesn't. And this thing, in the opening credits, the big monster, I forgot what his name is, the Dark Lord, one of the Dark Lords.
Sauron?
That talk about. Yeah, that dude.
Yeah.
He's kicking everybody's ass with his big stick, right? Because he's got the ring on.
Yeah.
He's so powerful. He's like, he can control everything. And then one dude cuts off his finger.
Mm-hmm.
You're telling me that it's powerful enough for him to, like, he hits them. This is the opening credits. There's a battle scene. He hits, and like 11 people go flying like miles into the air. It's so powerful. But then one guy just whoop, and the little ring falls, his whole finger falls off. And I'm going, hold on. You're telling me this ring is powerful enough to give you strength to just knock people into the next zip code but it can't keep your finger safe that it's actually on. And if it's controlling people, how come it's not controlling that guy who just cut your damn finger off? You know what I mean? So immediately I'm just like, bullshit, 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 bullshit.
The thing with this, so for those of you who, for whatever reason, have been living under a rock for the past decade and change, Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring is a 2001 fantasy adventure film directed by Peter Jackson, based on the first volume of the Lord of the Rings series by J.R.R. Tolkien. It's first installment in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, followed by The Two Towers and Return of the King, set in Middle-earth. Story tells the tale of the Dark Lord Sauron, who's seeking the One Ring. The ring has found its way to the young hobbit Frodo Baggins. The fate of the Middle-earth hangs in the balance as Frodo and eight companions. Blah, blah, blah. I hate reading this description out loud.
I know.
There's a thing that this should be said about, like, the way that a ridiculous premise can be made to make sense.
Sure.
You know, fantasy and sci-fi and superhero movies, they're all based around inherently ridiculous premises.
Absolutely.
And I think that it's not right necessarily to judge a movie of a specific genre movie. It's not right to judge it against other movies that are not in that genre. They should have their own subset. They should have their own thing.
Sure.
Because realistically, these films and these stories are going to be told in a different way. Now, that's not to say that they can't have elements that mirror some of those stories. You know, everybody is really high on some of the aspects of Lord of the Rings involving the relationship between. I think the biggest part of Lord of the Rings, the whole franchise that people identify with, is the relationship between Frodo and Sam.
Okay.
Because they're the best friends.
Right.
They've got this whole thing going on.
It's the Harry Potter thing.
Exactly.
It's the same concept.
Right. But that's the thing. It's like that is cluttered up with all of this other stuff.
A lot of characters.
So many characters.
So many words I've never heard before. So many weird. A lot of times I feel like Lord of the Rings is like the sci-fi fantasy version of mumble rap to me. Just they end up in these weird, like they're saying things that you've never heard before, and these. I'm like, wait, what? I've never heard of this Mount Doom. They lost me with that one. I was like, come on, Mount Doom. The one thing I'll say in defense of this is it was actually written. The original was written in 1937, and when I figured that out, I went, wait a minute, okay, maybe that's why it's so cheesy. Maybe that's why it's so corny. And you know what? I'm a fan of Peter Jackson.
Yeah, Peter Jackson's not a bad director.
I love his work. And that's why when I see this, like, you know, one part that made me literally stop the movie. I was probably 15 minutes in.
Tell me.
I stopped the movie at one point and just had to go, I can't do it. When Gandalf was smoking a pipe and he blows smoke in the shape of a sailboat and the sailboat takes off into the air, I just had to stop. I was just like,
This was a
can't.
thing, and this is a thing you mentioned to me when we started talking about having you on to talk about this. Initially, we were going to talk about the whole series, and I think it's good that we boiled it down to one. You have never been able to get through Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring.
Goblin. Yeah.
I haven't been able to get through it at all.
Which means I never even started the second or third one. I can't. Are they going to discount me and discredit me because I can't buy in. Trees are trying to fight people. It's stupid. The whole damn thing. And then I found myself having to pause it and rewind it like I'm listening to a Little Pump album. I'm like, wait, what did he say? What did he say? What did he say? The dark lore of the inside the dwarf holes in Mount Doom and the jolly surrounder brings the orgs of George in the Middle Earth and the Rohan Mordor. I can't. Just stop. Wait, what did he say? Wait, what the hell is Mordor? What the hell is... I couldn't buy in. Like, it's not like there was a regular life going on, and then at some point someone goes, "Oh, some shit went down. This changed things, and now there's this world." They start you off as though this is the norm. I think that's part of the reason why I couldn't buy in from the beginning.
That's interesting. So, all right. So here's where I'm at with the movie. Is that I think that there's something about the movies that just didn't vibe with me. On a certain level. Fantasy, this is not my genre of movie. And I do think that there are parts of this story that are grounded. Again, the Frodo and Sam relationship I think is really nice and grounded. And even though the whole movie is obviously not realistic at all, I think that part works. Now, I'm gonna try and I want to poke a hole here
Okay.
because you brought this up twice now. So you have no problem with superhero movies. It sounds like
It's not that I don't have a problem with it. There are ridiculous aspects.
okay. Hit me. What? Hit me with them.
Well, like I brought up a while ago, like this idea that the Hulk, for example, it's a stupid concept just to imagine it, but they start you in real life and then go, here's a chain of events that happened. This is such a far-fetched fantasy that it starts off in a fantasy land that I can never relate to. And so they're trying, like if you right in the opening scene, I'm seeing contradictions in your plot. I'm seeing plot holes. I'm seeing it doesn't make sense that it's so powerful he can knock all these people out, but his finger can be cut off. I go, that's ridiculous. And then I think in the opening credits too, she says something like, history became legend, legend became myth, and for 2,500 years, I'm going, this sounds like the Bible. Like this is it's very closely related to and then I just start checking out going, I don't believe any of that shit either. And I'm just like, there's so much bullshit here. So it's really hard to I don't know. I think it's just starting me off in a fantasy land where a wizard can teleport into Bilbo Baggins' house, but has to take a horse down the street. I'm checking out. I'm like, stupid. I can't get into it. I just can't.
Let me ask you this: Is this a movie that you saw and I'm assuming you hadn't read The Hobbit or any of the
That's
Tolkien
what everybody
books
keeps
before?
saying. Yeah, but when I knew I was coming on with you today, I tweeted, "The Lord of the Rings is terrible. Changed my mind."
Okay, so yeah, what did people say?
Yeah, so let me promote my Twitter real quick. It's David C. Smalley for those who want to go Instagram and Twitter. David C. Smalley. I tweeted, "The Lord of the Rings is terrible. Changed my mind." A lot of people started asking, have you read the book? And I get that a lot. They're like, Peter Jackson screwed it up. I don't believe that. I think Peter Jackson's a phenomenal director. But maybe a lot of the stuff that I hate about it is not in the book. I don't know. I didn't read the book.
If you hated parts of the movie, the book is longer than the movie and contains way more stuff. I could at least get through all of the Lord of the Rings movies. I couldn't even get through Fellowship of the Ring. Like I remember.
Oh, you got through the other two?
No, I watched all the other movies. I watched the entire trilogy, but I couldn't get through the books. Like I had to read The Hobbit in 6th grade. It was required reading in my school.
Oh, wow.
And I remember reading it, and my dad, this is one of the first times I can actively remember disappointing my dad, is that I read the book and he was like, yes, because he was a big fan of Tolkien as an author, and he gave me the first 2 Lord of the Rings books. And he was like, read these, you'll really enjoy these. And I couldn't get past, there's a section in the first book in Fellowship of the Ring where Frodo and the ring folk, they go and they hang out in the woods and then they all get lost. And there's this dude like Tom Bombadil who shows up and like Frodo's singing this song, and it's like a magical like summoning of this like this wood elf kind of guy. And it's just like I kept stopping at that section and being like, I don't see where the story's going. How are there still 600 more pages in this book? What else is going to happen here? This movie is a movie made for people who don't want to read the books of anything and still understand what's going on. But that's the thing, is it's so hard for people who are not fantasy wonks to break through the sort of impenetrable layers of story and exposition that gets set out in front if you don't have at least some idea of what what the world building is supposed to be like here, then it's hard to get into it. And I understand why, as somebody who hasn't read the books, that that's a turnoff from the jump.
So what was it for you then, since you did read because that's a lot of them are saying, there are people on here that are saying change that to atrocious, it's terrible. Some people just say the Middle Earth universe is awesome, and then they're like, play Shadow of Mordor. There are people
who are suggesting that you play a video game instead of watching the books?
Game instead of watching the movie.
Watching the movie?
Yeah, I don't have to change your mind. You change my mind. Lord of the Rings is amazing. Like now there's this whole Twitter fight going on.
Listen to this episode. What's this person's Twitter handle?
Which one?
The person who said, change my mind. Great podcasting we're doing right now.
Thomas S. Fairchild.
Listen.
He's at Go for Progress.
At Go for Progress. Yeah. You listen up, buddy. Lord of the Rings is hot, flaming garbage. it should be sacrificed in the fires of Mount Doom, just like the stupid ring. Okay, so let's go a little further in the movie because realistically, we've still only gotten through like the first 10 minutes.
I know, which is most of what I watched because I had to keep stopping and backing up and going, wait a minute. And I actually made notes. I forced myself to sit down and watch this movie.
I appreciate you doing that
for you, and I like you much less because of that.
I'm sorry,
but I did it. I did it for you because I don't want people coming to do my podcast unprepared. So I forced myself. The first time I watched this was several years ago, and there was a girl that set me down and was like, "You've got to watch this. You have to watch this movie." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." So I sat down. 10 minutes in, she's asleep, and I'm going, "This is bullshit. This is bullshit." At every turn. So she didn't even make it through it and was trying to force me to watch it. So.
Yeah. The thing is, here's another aspect of this movie that again, this is one of those things that's like not the fault of Peter Jackson. I gotta say it again. Peter Jackson, he's a good director. And I think that the fact that he was able to pull off making this trilogy and making it palatable and as accessible as it is, it's surprisingly accessible given how obtuse and hard to break into the source material is. I mean, it's one of the highest grossing movies of all time. Highest grossing of the whole series, and it won a bunch of awards, and deservedly so. Yeah. But it's so...
And Lil Pump is a millionaire.
Lil Pump is also a millionaire.
There we go.
That's the thing. It's, people love the Migos. And take it to Mount Doom. Oh, we're going to throw in the ring. Oh.
Hey, Doom.
So this thing...
It's so stupid. I don't know. I don't know.
So one of the most compelling character of the whole trilogy barely shows up in this movie, and that's Gollum.
Yeah.
Gollum is an amazing character, and Gollum really is not in this movie at all. Gollum gets tortured a little bit and shows up and has the ring. You see the hands.
Yeah.
And Gollum is a great character. Mm-hmm. Everybody else is just kind of like, I got an axe.
Right.
I got a bow and arrow.
Yeah.
I want to be invisible, sort of. Oh, I'm so scared. I don't want to do this thing. I can't do it. I'll need my friends. Please. Oh, I'm gonna get attacked by the shadow people. What am I doing? Is this an Australian accent that I just delved into?
You started English and you started shifting Australian, I think.
I think that's what happened to New Zealand. This movie's in New Zealand. That's my version of a New Zealander accent.
Okay, there we go.
So, and like I'm reading the plot here on the Wikipedia page right now, and there's so many words that like have links that I know that someone has spent so much time crafting this Wikipedia page in a basement for the Shire, Gandalf, Gondor, Morgul Blade, Rivendell. These pages all have so much depth to them, and there's so many people who care so deeply about this. But there's for guys like you and me who don't want to dive in.
Well, it's not that I don't want to. It's that just draw me in.
That's what
give me a reason to lean in.
That's where I'm at too.
Who you are. Like you're from Texas, right?
Yes.
That's the first time I noticed you on stage. I was looking at my phone. I heard a comic on stage. You know how it is.
Yeah.
All the time, just a million comics.
Right. Especially you running a show. You know,
I'm from Texas, and I look up and go, "What? Another Texan in the house? That's cool." What part of Texas are you from?
Grew up around Dallas.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I grew up in Everman.
I grew up in Colleyville.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you were rich. I was poor. That's what we've just learned.
Exactly.
And then I moved to Garland and bought a house there. But for me, it would be like for someone coming in here and going, I want to tell you about this story that happened to me in Connecticut. And we're like, okay.
Right.
Right off the bat, we're like, who gives a shit about Connecticut?
Right.
And then we go, but I'm not selfish. I'll listen. And she's like, okay, so Sally, who is the secretary to Jonathan. Jonathan is the CEO of this First Bank of Connecticut that you never heard of. So Sally and her cousin Deborah came over. And then Bob was married to Deborah. And Bob didn't like Jeremy, who... You have so many characters in a place you don't give a shit about, and then she starts using terms that are just local to that bank. And the printer had that FOX thing pop up, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, it's FOX again on the printer." You start glazing over because this person's telling you this dumbass story about a place you don't care about and 19 characters that you don't know and can't identify with. At some point, you're going to be like, "I'm having an aneurysm. I have to leave." Right?
You know what it is?
That's kind of the feeling I get with this movie.
This movie is like This, and you love this as a Texan. This movie is like the Alamo for nerds. Like, there's so much that Texans, like, we have to learn so much about the Alamo. And we cared so deeply about the Alamo. We were remembering the Alamo, all right? They made so many movies about the Alamo. And nobody cares about the Alamo.
7th grade history is a Texas history class.
Same with fourth grade history, too.
It's all Texas history.
You got to remember it. I had to make an Alamo out of sugar cubes in 4th grade.
I did, too.
That's what you do.
I don't know if it was 4th grade, but I did have to make an Alamo out of sugar cubes at some point in my life.
That's how much. Now imagine if there was like a school for nerds where they had to make Soarin' Spire and Mount Doom out of sugar cubes. That's what this movie is.
And then we
like.
do a podcast just shitting on it. And so
right?
there's a podcast shitting on the Alamo. We're like, hey, you remember the Alamo.
But that's what this movie is like. This movie is something that I can understand why people care so deeply about it, but it's just not my cup of tea.
For the people who do care about it, I want to know how you got drawn in. Like, obviously, you and I aren't big on fantasy.
Right.
Right.
Like the most fantasy I get into is Harry Potter. Because but it's also still like, that's like a superhero movie, essentially, in that it's set basically in the real world.
I love Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Now, there's still, and I think because it sort of, I don't know that it doesn't start off magical, does it? It starts off like a regular kid. Maybe that's the difference. Maybe that's the hook for me. Show me real life first and then draw me into the fantasy.
Yeah.
But don't just start off where a wizard can, make fireworks happen out of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a question. You remember when Bilbo Baggins was on stage and he vanished? And then he immediately ran to his little grassy Keebler elf hut or whatever the hell he lived in. And then
got inside the tree, found the fudge stripes.
Immediately started eating his fudge stripes. And Gandalf was just there. Just bewitched. Wiggled his nose, bam, was there.
Right.
All this shit was going on. They have a whole conversation. They argue for a minute. That was
mine. That's good.
I was going to say mine's in airplane mode. This whole time, they're arguing. So Gandalf is standing in between Bilbo and the mantle.
Mm-hmm.
And Bilbo has the ring. And he's like, give me the ring. And he's like, I'll put it in an envelope on the mantle. He's not David Blaine. How the hell do you think he's going to get it on there without you seeing it? And he's also supposed to be magic. But what does Gandalf do? Turns around and starts looking around on the mantle. Bilbo has been nowhere near the mantle this entire time. It makes no sense.
Right.
This I blame the director for. For sure, this is Peter Jackson's fault because it's clear to everybody that he's never been to the mantle. And so he turns around. It's like sometimes when a character is supposed to be so smart and so on top of it and such a leader and so powerful, and then, he just like leaves the iron on when he walks out of the door. You're like, that's not part of that character. That wouldn't happen. It's not realistic. And then there's this long, that's probably 12-minute scene or something of Bilbo and Gandalf arguing. And then Frodo comes busting into Bilbo's house.
Yeah.
I'm like, where the hell has Bilbo been this entire time? I mean, I'm sorry, where the hell has Frodo been?
Frodo, yeah.
He's been out there looking for Bilbo in places that are not Bilbo's home. Where do you look? There's so much stuff I'm looking at, and I just keep having to stop the movie and go, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. I took a lot of notes.
Where's the last part of this movie that you were able to pay attention to before you just had to tap out?
I finished the rest, but I stopped paying attention probably. I forget exactly when it was, but it was a part where there was a woman was talking to Frodo, and she was saying something. It was some sort of a vision he was having, but it was something like. She was trying to say something. Sorry, this was really distracting. She was saying,
hey, wait, guys, can you stop playing the thing?
They're not listening to us.
I can't. Hold on. I'm going to stop them.
Yeah.
So what's the last part of this movie that you were able to pay attention to?
She was trying to speak to him in riddles, even though it was a vision of his own.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, you will find the man in the tree who also has a left eye that happens to be... Bitch, it's just me and you. Tell me, who am I looking for?
Right.
It doesn't make any sense that she would speak in code and riddles when it's just a private... I'm like, come on. Like that, my bullshit meter was just off the top. It sounded poetic. It sounded pretty. It just... I'm just going, there's just so many things that didn't make sense. So I let the movie continue to play, and I was just like, I don't know. There's a lot more notes I have here.
Hit me with some more of these notes.
Okay. When they're on their journey,
Yes.
they're out in the middle of this journey. They're traveling for like, what, 30 days, 40 days? How long were they traveling?
It's a long trip.
Again, it's like the Jews. We're like in the Bible with the 40 days lost in the woods type situation, right?
Right.
Out of nowhere, somebody pulls out sausages and starts cooking them in an open fire. Like sausage links that you would like find in Texas, like at a Spring Creek barbecue or something.
Yeah.
Sausage links. And I'm like, where has that been? Have you just been walking around with rotten meat in your backpack for 40 days? Or did you just kill something and then find a sausage packing machine?
Yeah.
It made no sense. Frodo's blade. You know how when the orgs get close,
Sting, yeah.
the thing starts to glow?
Mm-hmm.
There are times when it glows when they're approaching, and then there are times where they're 5 feet from him and he's running from them and it's not glowing. I'm going, why isn't it glowing? Does it glow? They have to be, is it like how does it, again, I get pulled out of the whole thing because I'm like, if it glows when they're close, they're about to kill him. Why isn't it glowing?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
The inconsistencies.
The tsunami of water horses. Why? The water is coming and then it turns to the shape of a horse and starts to gallop. I had to pause it and go, beautiful, somatically, but bullshit.
There's a lot of really beautiful scenes. I mean, the fight with the Balrog. Beautiful scene.
Absolutely. But, special effects wise, if you're in it, I could see how that could be one of your favorite scenes.
Mm-hmm.
But then you're hiding from these magical ghosts on horses that are coming to kill you. And how dumb do you have to be in the middle of the night to climb to the top of a tower in pitch black darkness and start a fire?
It's pretty dumb.
And then Frodo's even like, you idiots, and he's like stomping it out. Like, what are you doing? I'm going, man, it just looked like somebody was on some super try hard.
You know what? You know what I think really like at the heart of this movie is the big problem is that it's a movie that wants to have a simple story to it and tell it in this fantastical way.
Okay.
You know, like it wants to be the hero's journey, right? Classic hero's journey stuff. You know, somebody's thrust into a situation they don't want to be in. They go on this quest to try and solve this great evil and return home safe but changed.
Thanos.
Yeah.
Just like in the Avengers with Thanos, it's very similar. He wants some sort of, what is it, a jewel or whatever?
The Infinity Stones.
The Infinity Stones. He wants those stones to be able to control and have all this power. But it's usually consistent.
Right.
There's something missing.
And that's the thing. Well, that's the thing that makes Infinity War a compelling movie is that it tells the villain's story from the point of view of the hero.
Yeah.
The thing with Lord of the Rings that is supposed to make it interesting is that, oh, hey, there's a big fire demon over there. Mm-hmm. Man, they're saying words that don't make sense, but it must be, hey, go read these books, why don't you? You know, you'll probably understand a whole lot more of what's going on if you read these books. But gosh, doesn't it look cool?
That was probably my first turnoff, was the mumbling, the Mordor, the Dark Lord. I'd go, what is he? Like sometimes they whisper the words in an accent and a really strange about the Mordor, the land, and the forest. And I'm like, what? What? Like I can deal with that if I know the words you're talking about.
Right.
And I'm sure your listeners are just thinking I'm an uncultured swine, and I get that. But it's not just an accent, it's a whisper. And it's not just a whisper, it's fantasy words, things that literally don't exist, that we don't say every day. So it's even harder to understand. And I found myself probably 45 minutes into the movie going, I don't know what the hell is going on. I know there's a ring. I know it's supposed to have powers, and then sometimes it seems not to. I'm confused, but I'm not invested because at this point, you've got the Brady Bunch on a road trip. Everybody's walking. And who in the hell takes their gardener on a voyage? Like, none of this makes any sense. I struggled trying to keep track. There were so many of the plot holes, so many ridiculous things that I could never get on board. Avengers and superhero movies don't do that. There's very few characters that really matter, and the story stays on topic. And I think that has to do with the fact that this was written in 1937. I give it its only defense is that it was written in 1937. And so my expectations should come down a little bit.
Hey, you know what? It's okay. You don't have to have good expectations for this movie. You don't have to. I'm going to take you off the hook for that.
Okay.
I think look, I'm just as uncultured as you are, apparently. I've tried watching this movie and I can't get on board with it. And I have tons of friends who love this movie and the other movies in the trilogy.
We have a mutual friend that would fight me, probably both of us if he was here.
Probably.
Isaac.
Yeah.
He is we've gotten into so many, not so many, but a couple of heated arguments. He just started, you don't get it. You don't understand. Lord of the Rings is great. And then he'll start rattling off some speech that changed his life in Lord of the Rings.
Right.
It's really meaningful to a lot of people. And I get that.
It's not a movie that is not well made and not well acted. It's not like you're watching these characters and being like, oh no, that's bad what Viggo Mortensen is doing. That's bad what Ian McKellen or Elijah Wood are doing.
Not at all.
None of it is bad. It's the sum of its parts still makes a movie that I can understand why it's a classic and why people like it. But it's just one of those things that I don't understand on a personal level,
right?
Why this movie is worth my time to get into.
I had a friend tell me one time that talking shit about the Lord of the Rings is like throwing handfuls of shit at the Mona Lisa because you don't get art.
Okay, well, that's bullshit.
I know. I'm like, it's
You know what? I don't have to know the backstory of the fucking Mona Lisa to appreciate looking at it.
Right.
I don't have to turn on subtitles and pause it so I can go read some nerd's Wikipedia page.
But look at it, right? But look at it this way: if the Mona Lisa didn't exist and I painted it today and walked in here, you'd go, "What is that shit?"
It's just a
lady.
lady.
It's a picture of a lady, and it's not even that great of a painting if you get down to the artistic value, considering to what some people do nowadays, as far as talent goes and how they make things pop in 3D and amazing talent. It's a 2D picture of a basic ass lady.
Right.
She's not like she's super attractive. There's nothing going on. It's just it's a basic white bitch at this point. And so I don't get it.
You heard it here first, folks. The Mona Lisa is a basic bitch.
She is. And I look at that and you can say the same thing for the Beatles, right? What the Beatles did changed rock and roll history. But if they were to come out today with that style, it would be boring. It'd be like, what the hell? Like, nobody would care. So they were significant for their time, and we've evolved so far in that genre that they would never even make it today. They wouldn't get out of Austin, right? But they changed the world when they came out at their moment. Mona Lisa, same way. Changed the world, and when it came out, it was magnificent. It was beautiful. It was, oh my God, huge impact to the world of art. Today, nobody would give a shit. I think that's why I go back to this Lord of the Rings. I think if Lord of the Rings as it is right now was released today in the world of Infinity War and, I don't know, with the graphics and stuff of like Rampage and all the, the Rampage isn't a great movie, but like the graphics, like the CGI, you know what I mean? The expectations right now.
I mean, even look at the CGI of Game of Thrones.
Right. Perfect example. Yeah. And that's actually probably a better analogy or a better comparison because that's the same genre, the fantasy.
And what I think is going to be really interesting to see, and I think this is what we'll wrap it up on. There's going to be, I'm sure you've probably heard, a Lord of the Rings series that is being made for Amazon. And it's supposed to be, I think it's cost, it's the most expensive TV series that is ever being made. I think it's costing $1 billion. Let me look at this up right now.
I think I would rather listen to the audiobooks of the original Lord of the Rings than I would watch the movies.
Yeah, it's going to cost $1 billion. It's going to span 5 seasons. It's going to be...
Is it the same story or is it
It's the same story, but it's a movie, or it's not a movie. It's the same story as told in the movies and is told in the books, but it's going to be for television. And I think in the same way that Game of Thrones makes more sense theoretically, I don't know, as someone who also doesn't watch Game of Thrones.
Right.
because it's not my genre.
Yeah, me either.
And I've never wanted to break in. Like, again, the episodes I've seen the episodes I've seen of Game of Thrones, I think they're cool because there's a lot of cool spectacle in them. There are parts of the Lord of the Rings trilogy that I think are cool because it's very cool and it's fun to look at. And there are parts of the story that I'm like, yeah, I get it. I see what you're doing there. But it's not my vibe.
Yeah, me either.
You know?
Yeah, me either. How do you pitch that? How do you go to Amazon and go, hey, we have an idea for a show? Really? What is it? We want to do 5 seasons. It's you've seen Lord of the Rings? Yeah. It's exactly that again.
Are you serious? Is this you got no other things you want to bring to the table?
No, it's Lord of the Rings, but again. So
how much do you think it's going to cost?
About $1 billion. You can do this. Listen, it's good content. It's a good story. We're just gonna do it again. The same stuff that's already been done and is a huge success. And then after that, I would like to talk to you about this new idea I have called Star Wars. It's gonna blow your mind.
Okay, well, my name's Jeff Bezos, and I'll shake your hand on the. This is a great Jeff Bezos impression.
Great impression of Jeff Bezos.
God, David, thank you for being able to commiserate with me.
Thank you for
talk
having
about
me.
Hating Lord of the Rings.
Thanks for having me. I
feel like we're going to be shunned by so many people now.
So many.
But it's all right. We're uncultured swine. We think the Mona Lisa is a basic bitch.
Bring it.
Is what it is.
Bring it.
Where can the listeners find you? David C. Smalley.
DavidCSmalley.com. David C. Smalley on Twitter, David C. Smalley on Instagram.
And podcast?
A podcast is called Dogma Debate. It's available on Podcast One, everywhere you steal podcasts. It's everywhere. There's tons of people listen to it. It's a lot of fun.
Fantastic.
We have pastors and preachers on, and comedians, and we talk about religion and atheism, and we all keep it lighthearted and respectful. So it's a lot of fun.
Sounds great.
Awesome.
You can find me on the internet at Diet J on Twitter and Instagram, jlightcomedy.com for show dates. And go leave a review on
that's
iTunes.
why you use Diet J, because of J Light.
Yeah.
I just got it.
It's okay. You
I knew
figured
both
it out.
of those. It just came together for me.
There we go. It's what we're here for.
They're like, see, proof he's stupid. And that's why he doesn't get the Lord of the Rings.
Guys, this has been Blockbusting. Go see something good for a change.